Westfall sits south and to the east of Stormwind, capital city of humankind, and in the years past its rolling pastures of rich farmland served as Stormwind's breadbasket. That changed, however, when the old horde rampaged across the lands in the Second War. However, that was just the first of a list of mismanagements that afflicted Westfall in its storied history. A drought that was never truly dealt with ravaged the farmlands. The mechanical harvest watchers were left to disrepair and have since gone rogue, killing all who enter their territories. And of course, there is the Defias Brotherhood. I won't speak much of the Defias Brotherhood here, for they deserve their own entry in the annals of history, but I will give a brief overview of their doings, for to know what is happening in Westfall today is to know the Brotherhood. Before they were the Defias Brotherhood, they were the Stonemasons Guild that rebuilt Stormwind after the Orcs occupied it during the Second War. They did their job and they did it well, rebuilding Stormwind into the state we see it today. However, when they went to the noble houses asking for pay for their work, they were refused. This led to chaos. The coup would ultimately fail, and those that escaped execution or imprisonment would flee to Westfall, where they would create the Defias Brotherhood, a band of brigands, thieves, and assassins that would plague the land for years, until a group of adventurers would deal with them for good. Or so they thought. As soon as I walked into Westfall, I felt shame. I was ashamed at what my people let happen here. This was once the heart of humanity's farmland, and now it was nothing more than a few sparsely spread out farms on yellow, dry grass. I regretted coming here immediately, but I wouldn't turn back. I had a job to do, and the first part of that job was finding Lieutenant Horatio Lane, the officer looking into the murder of the Fulbrows and their horses. A not so difficult task, considering the incident happened a few dozen meters away from the Owen-Westfall border. Lane was still there investigating the murder site. As soon as he looked at me, I could tell he didn't think highly of me. And when he started talking, that made me think not so highly of him. From what he said, there were dozens of, and these are his words, hobos that would have been happy to see the Fulbrows dead, or do the deed themselves. Not thinking I would be that useful at the crime scene, and knowing I wouldn't be leaving his company anytime soon, Lane sent me off to ask the locals what they saw the night of the murder. After the loosening power of a few copper coins, I learned that there was strange Knoll and Murloc activity on the night in question. Lane didn't put much stock in that, but for all his faults, he believed in looking into every lead, especially when he could send someone else to investigate it for him. After decreasing the local Knoll and Murloc population, I eventually found something that may be of worth. Some torn up red cloth and barely legible scribblings on wet paper. Lane didn't think it was anything special and decided I should check in with one of his old confidants, Two-Shoe Lou at the Fulbrow's old pumpkin patch. Lou didn't seem all that willing to help me. Well, not until I dropped Horatio's name. Then he suddenly couldn't stop trying to help me. He didn't know who offed the Fulbrows, but he did think he knew where I might be able to find out. He gave me an old box and told me to head to the back of the Jangalode mines and hide in it. Damned confusing, but I didn't have any better leads. What is it with this region and mines being filled to the brim with kobolds? Anyway, after killing my way to the back of the mine, I did what Lou said. Felt damn stupid for doing it, but boy was I surprised with what I saw. An ogre mage named Glubtok had made a home for himself there, and he wasn't alone. There was a shadowed female human with him. The human was trying to get Glubtok to join her operations, claimed she would shower him in wealth and power. Concerning, yeah, but I wasn't sure what Lou thought this had to do with the Fulbrow's murder. I'd better get back and see what he has to say. Lou wasn't willing to answer any of my questions, no matter how much I tried to cajole him, but he did have another lead for me. Some thugs showed up on the farm recently and were causing trouble. He suggested I head to the back of the farmhouse and hear what they had to say. And so I listened. Turns out some woman paid these thugs to deal with the Fulbrows. I tried to arrest them, but they didn't want to come quietly, so I had to show them the justice end of my axe. As I was finishing up, I heard a gunshot and a scream coming from Lou's direction and rushed back there, unsurprised to find Lou dead, and somewhat surprised to find Lane had finally arrived. Lane was convinced this wasn't just some petty murder anymore. This was organized crime done by someone with real power, and while I didn't know who was organizing it yet, I could feel I was getting closer. Lane sent me over to the Saldine farm. According to him, the patriarch over there kept his ear to the ground, and I should ask him some questions. I didn't learn much at that farm, except Westfall is in some pretty dire straits. Decided to take matters into my own hands and head down to Sentinel Hill. Maybe someone there will have some answers to my questions. First thing I did was check in with the Saldine's adopted daughter, Hope. She asked me to give her mother's cooking to the local homeless population. I tried to tell her I was busy, but there was something about her that stopped me. Like saying no would be the worst thing I could do. I finished her task as quickly as I could before meeting up with Marshal Grian Stoutmantle. Turns out Sentinel Hill was having some knoll troubles. I agreed to help solve it, in no small part because the Marshal alluded to having some information I would want. Having dealt with the gnolls, Grian gave me the information he had. Turns out there was an SI-7 agent named Keenan tracking a goblin named Helix Gearbreaker over at Mortwake Tower. I was curious about why an SI-7 agent was here, but Grian was right. This was information I wanted. After all, information was SI-7's domain. If anyone knew what was being hidden here, it would be them. With the information I had gathered helping out Grian, Keenan determined that Helix was responsible for the gnoll attacks, and he is in the heavily guarded tower right in front of us. As she hands me a shrouding potion, she says she'll make sure I can get in there, and once I do, I just need to wait and listen. I was a bit confused, but before I even realized I hadn't agreed to anything, I was halfway to the tower, and she was putting bullets in mercenary heads. At the top of the tower I saw them, Helix riding atop his lumbering oaf, and standing before him, the shadowy figure that was talking to Glubtalk. I was beginning to realize I wasn't just investigating a murder anymore. I made myself comfortable as I listened to them. The conversation didn't tell me much. Helix is working for the woman. They're looking for someone named the Admiral, and the gnoll attacks are a distraction. Something called the Dawning will be happening soon, and most importantly, this woman will be making an appearance in Moonbrook very soon. Not wasting any time, and realizing that Lane would be useful in this situation, I decided I would be reporting what I found to Grian from now on. Grian directed me to Captain Alpert, who is stationed just outside of Moonbrook. He figured him and another ally he met while he was at Northrend may be able to help figure this thing out. First thing Albert let me know was that homeless activity had quadrupled in the last few days. And the activity wasn't that they all decided to get jobs, so not a good sign. Apparently a group of thugs just came in handing out propaganda of something. I need to find what it is. I know now it's surely related to whatever is going on here. What I found made me very concerned. Everything I read led me to believe that Defias Brotherhood was about to return. I can't let that happen. Westfall suffered enough under the hands of the old version. I had to be certain though, so I snuck into the rally the shadowy figure was about to host and paid close attention to what was and what wasn't being said. She put on a good show, made everyone feel like they were part of the same family, and made sure to call out the Alliance as the sole entity responsible for their suffering. Really brought everyone together. But it was when she held up that flag with the symbol of the Defias, I knew she didn't mean any of it, and that she just wanted to hurt those who hurt her. Albert and I were confused. The level of hate this woman has doesn't come from some minor slight. She must have had some relation to the old Defias, but what? It was then Albert suggested I talk to Shaman Forelius. His abilities may hold the answers we seek. Forelius gave me some incense and told me to use it in the dead mines, and the spirits will help me uncover the past. and I saw it. All of it. The good and the bad. A group of adventurers defeated Edwin Van Cleef and left feeling like they had saved Westfall. Had they have just waited a few more moments, the situation I'm currently in may have never happened. Van Cleef had a daughter, and she watched her father being decapitated and his murderers being rewarded for it. I'm not surprised she hates the Alliance for that, but I can't let her revive the Defias Brotherhood. With all the information, I headed right back to Gryan. I needed to inform him as soon as possible, but I was too late. She was already prepared for her dawning. Just as Gryan was giving me my next mission, she walked out of Sentinel Hill's tower and ripped her disguise away. Hope, the Soldine's adopted daughter, was really Vanessa Van Cleef, and she was ready to make all those who killed her father pay. Starting with the Sentinel Hill militia, she freed the Admiral and then set off the biggest Gnoll attack on Sentinel Hill to date. With Vanessa gone, Gryan got his men back under control and killing Gnolls. However, for me he had different orders. I was to head to Stormwind and inform Grand Admiral Jess Teref about the return of the Defias Brotherhood. The Grand Admiral commended me for my work in Westfall before sending me back to inform Gryan that she would be sending a battalion to help put this new Defias Brotherhood down as quickly as possible. Gryan also thanked me for what I had done in Westfall, but unfortunately had to send me away for the time being. He told me we wouldn't be able to get into the Defias' hideout and deal with them right away, and that I was in greater need elsewhere for the time being. He suggested I head east of Elwyn into Red Ridge Mountains and report to Magister Solomon in Lakeshire. I was disappointed I wouldn't be able to deal with the Defias right now. However, Gryan was right, and a promise to call on me when the time was right to deal with the Defias did make me feel a bit better. And so, I made my way to the Griffin Rider and made for my next destination, the Red Ridge Mountains. Thanks for watching. I know I'm only 2 videos into this series, but I'm really enjoying giving my character a grouchy old man voice. Next up we have Red Ridge Mountains, followed by Duskwood. Both videos are already recorded and the scripts and editing just need to be completed. I hope you've been enjoying these, and if you have, a follow is always appreciated. And if you would like to catch me live, you can find me over at Twitch at twitch.tv/Megaslayer321A. There I will be streaming games with my brother and by myself.